Here we go to the second part of the French Revolution. Soon the population of France increased. In the year 1715, the population was 23 million, which rose to 28 million in the year 1789. In 74 years the population increases by 5 million. Isn't that a big number? As the population increased, even the demand for food grains also increased rapidly. The staple food of France was bread, and obviously the price of the bread rose rapidly. The money with the people wasn't sufficient to buy bread because their wages were fixed and their wages did not keep pace with the rising prices. Whenever there was a natural disaster like drought or hail, things became even more worse as it reduced the harvest. This led to the subsistence crisis. What do you mean by subsistence crisis? It means that the basic means of life is endangered. Since the prices of the food increased, the people who were poor were not able to afford money to buy it. So they started protests and riots. In the 18th century, it witnessed the emergence of new social groups who were termed as middle class and earned wealth by expanding sea trades and manufacturing goods like wool and silk textiles, which were exported or brought by the richer sections of the society. The Third Estate included professionals like lawyers or administrative officials. All those who were educated believed that no group in the society should be given privileges by birth. Rather, a person's social position must be based on his merit. These ideas, based on freedom and equal laws and opportunities for all, were put by philosophers like John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. The Two Treatises of Government was a book written by Locke which sought to refute the doctrine of divine and the absolute right of the monarch. Rousseau spread the idea of the government based on social contract between people and the representatives. The Spirit of the Laws, book written by Montesquieu, had the idea of division of power within the government between legislative, executive and the judiciary. This type of government came into force in the USA after the 13 colonies declared independence from Britain. The important example for political thinkers in France is the American Constitution and its guarantee of individual rights, so these ideas were spread along France. These ideas were discussed intensely in saloons and coffee houses, through books and newspapers, and were read aloud in groups for those who could not read and write. So you have learned in the previous part that why Louis XVI increased the taxes. So in this part we are going to discuss about the outbreak of the revolution. In France, of the old regime, the monarch did not have the power to impose taxes according to his wish. He had to call a meeting of the Estates General which would then impose taxes. So what is a Estates General? A State General is a political body to which the three estates sent their representatives. The monarch had the power to decide when to call for a meet. The last meeting was done in 1614. On the 5th of May 1789, King Louis XVI called the Estates General to pass proposals for new taxes. It was convened in the resplendent hall in Versailles. 1,200 representatives had attended the meeting. The first and second estates sent 300 representatives each. They were seated in rows facing each other on two sides, and the third estate sent 600 members, and they had to stand at the back. In the third estate, representatives were prosperous and educated members. Peasants, artisans, and women were denied entry to the assembly. However, their grievances and demands were listed in some 40,000 letters and the representatives bought with them. The voting had started and conducted according to the principle that each estate had on vote. Even this time the voting was done in the same way. But there was a demand from Third Estate that voting must be conducted as whole, which means each member would have one vote. This was a democratic principle which was put forward by philosophers like Rousseau in his book, The Social Contract, but the king rejected this proposal and the Third Estate walked out of the assembly and protested. On the 20th of June the members of the Third Estate assembled in the hall of an indoor tennis court in the grounds of Versailles. They declared themselves as National Assembly and swore that they will not disperse till they had drafted a constitution for France that would limit the powers of monarch. They were led by Mirabeau and Abbé Sieyès. Mirabeau was from a noble family, but he was convinced of the need to do away with a society of feudal privilege. He bought a journal and delivered powerful speeches to the crowd which was assembled at Versailles. Abbé Sieyès was a priest who wrote an influential pamphlet called, What is Third Estate? The National Assembly was busy at Versailles drafting a constitution, and the rest of the France seethed with turmoil. As we saw before, due to the hail and drought there is a bad harvest. So the same thing happened again. There was a severe winter and even bad harvest, which again led to the increase in the price of bread, and the bakers often exploited the situation and hoarded supplies. Since the women had to buy bread, they stood in long queue. They spent hours in the queue, and got angry and stormed into the shops. At the same time the king ordered the troops to move into Paris. On the 14th of July 1789 they agitated crowds stormed and destroyed the Bastille. In the countryside there was a rumor spread from village to village. The rumor was that the lord of manor hired bands of brigands to destroy the ripe crops. All were in fear, so peasants in several districts seized hoes and pitchforks and attacked chateaux. They looted hoarded grain and burnt all the documents containing records or manorial dues. Many nobles fled from their homes and many migrated to neighboring countries. Due to these incidents, Louis XVI finally accorded recognition to the National Assembly and accepted the principle that his powers would be checked by the Constitution. On the night of the 4th of August 1789, the Assembly passes a decree abolishing the feudal system of obligations and taxes. Members of clergy were forced to give up their privileges. Tithes were abolished and land owned by church was confiscated. As a result, government acquired assets of worth 2 billion livres. The National Assembly completed the drafting of Constitution in 1791. The main object was to limit the powers of monarch. These powers, instead of being concentrated in one's hand, were now separated and assigned to different institutions: legislature, executive and judiciary. This made France a constitutional monarchy. The Constitution of 1791 vested the power to make laws in the National Assembly, which was indirectly elected. Citizens voted for a group of electors, who in turn chose the Assembly. Only the men above 25 years of age and who paid taxes equal to 3 days of laborer's wage were given the status of active citizens, that is, they were entitled to vote. The remaining men and women were classified as passive citizens. To qualify as an elector and then as a member of Assembly, a man had to belong to the highest bracket of taxpayers. So the Constitution began with the Declaration of Rights of Man and the Citizen. Rights such as right to life, freedom of speech, freedom of opinion, equality before law were established as the natural and inalienable rights, that is, they belonged to each human being by birth and could not be taken away. It was the duty of state to protect each citizen's natural rights. Hope you are satisfied with our content. If yes, do like and share. If you want more content from us, do subscribe and don't forget to click on the bell icon. Keep waiting for the next part. Until next time, stay tuned.